Okay, that's brilliant. Thanks very much, Eric. Okay, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone that is attending VirtualExpo today. Thank you to all the other presenters for giving up their time to deliver top quality presentations today. And a big thanks to Eric for arranging everything. Okay, so what I'd like to do today is talk to you about Citrix Workspace Environment Management, give you a bit of an overview of it, and also talk to you about the experiences I've had with customers since it was released around a year ago. But firstly, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. Okay, I'm Dan Challoner. I'm based in a town called Belper, which is located in England in the UK. I'm guessing no one has probably ever heard of the place before, but for those who know the UK, it's close to Derby and Nottingham. I'm currently the head of technology for Access Systems, who specialise in end user computing. I've been with them for about 5 years now, carrying out all kinds of projects involving products like Citrix, VMware, Microsoft and Ericom, just to name a few. I've achieved Citrix certification up to the Citrix Certified Expert in Virtualization, and I've also successfully passed the Citrix Virtualization Specialist Practicum. I have a Twitter account that you can follow me on, which is @CitrixHotspot, and my blog site is citrixhotspot.com, on which there are a few WEM blogs, and I'll be adding more onto there in the next coming weeks. You can email me at dan@citrixhotspot.com if you need to ask me any questions, and I'll try to answer them for you. And anyone that needs assistance with WEM, XenApp, XenDesktop, or any kinds of end user computing projects, please contact myself and the team at Access Systems, and we'll be more than happy to help you with your requirements. Okay, so I'll just move on to my agenda. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at here over the next 40-45 minutes. So I'll give you a quick overview of the WEM architecture required, the types of customer I deal with, and the kind of user experience that I'm seeing in the field, how you can significantly reduce login times and have much smaller user profiles, the benefits of CPU, I/O, and memory optimization, the advantages of whitelisting and blacklisting applications, using the transformer feature to convert old PCs so that it can be used as thin clients rather than having to be thrown away, which is ideal for businesses on tight budgets. And finally, just a brief overview of what WEM monitoring shows you. Throughout the presentation, I'll refer to Citrix Workspace Environment Management as WEM to make things simple rather than having to use a full name. Okay, so this diagram gives an overview of the Citrix WEM architecture that is required for an implementation with XenApp or XenDesktop. In the middle, you have the Citrix WEM Infrastructure Services. This is the Infrastructure Services broker, shown as the WEM broker on the diagram. That has to be installed on a Windows server. It synchronizes the various back-end components, SQL Server and Active Directory, with the front-end components, the WEM Administration Console and the WEM Agent Host. You then have the Citrix WEM Administration Console. The Administration Console is installed on a Windows client or on a server operating system. It connects to the Citrix WEM Infrastructure Services. You use the Administration Console to manage your Citrix WEM installation, to create and assign resources, manage policies, authorize users, etc. The Citrix WEM Agent Host, the Agent Host can either be deployed on VDAs or on physical Windows devices, for example, transformer use cases, which I'll discuss later on. It can also be installed on a Windows client to manage client environments, or on a Windows server to manage server environments, or to manage published desktops and applications. It connects to the Citrix WEM Infrastructure Services and is responsible for enforcing the settings you configure with the Administration Console. A SQL Server database is also required. You can use SQL Server mirroring and always-on availability groups. Citrix WEM requires a SQL Server database to store its settings. And as you probably expect, a Microsoft Active Directory server, Citrix WEM requires access to your Active Directory to push settings to users. Also, not shown on here is that you can have more than one WEM broker for redundancy. If you go down the route of having two WEM brokers, then they can be load balanced using a Citrix NetScaler appliance. WEM is highly resilient even without a second WEM broker, as the broker holds a copy of a database in a SQL Server Compact Edition database. So if the SQL Server goes down, WEM will still work. The WEM Agent Host also keep a copy of the database in a SQL Server Compact Edition database. So if the WEM broker goes down, the configuration on the WEM Agent Host will still be applied. Okay, I'll now give you a brief description of the types of businesses where I've implemented WEM over the last year and list the problems it has successfully resolved. Solicitors with Citrix ZenApp 6.5 environment for 100 users who were experiencing performance problems which was preventing the rollout of speech recognition software. An accountancy firm with 200 users and multiple satellite offices who migrated from Citrix ZenApp 6.5 to ZenApp 7.12, who were suffering ZenApp server density issues and needed to find a way to convert PCs to thin clients. A city council with 1,000 users running Citrix ZenApp 7.9, who were experiencing performance problems that would stop all users on the affected ZenApp servers from working. A housing association with 300 users running ZenApp and ZenDesktop 7.6, suffering from performance issues with Excel. A recruitment agency with 80 users running ZenApp 6.5 with roaming profiles. They were getting 300-second login times and had huge user profiles up to 4 gigabytes. A real estate company with 200 users running ZenApp 7.8 who were experiencing performance issues with an in-house application, and an international oil and gas company with 250 users running ZenDesktop 5.6 who were migrated to ZenDesktop 7.12. They had 200-second plus login times, issues with roaming profiles, and performance issues of their software applications. As well as businesses try, the user experience of a desktop user in a lot of cases seems to be a poor one. I often visit businesses where user login times are 60 seconds plus. In some environments where I've carried out WEM implementations, I've seen 300-second plus login times, which tend to come with the tagline, "We usually tell our users to go and make a drink whilst they log in." Piling up group policies and group policy preferences with scripts, registry settings, shortcuts, and network printers, for example, all help to cause these slow login times, and as such it gives users something to moan about whilst making a cup of tea. And as such, this negative feedback spreads around the business, and Citrix ZenApp or ZenDesktop services are seen in a bad light. Another reason for the poor user experience is due to slow applications and their responsiveness. All processes on the ZenApp server or virtual desktop give the system processes a higher priority than the user applications. So when the system processes are maxing out the processor, there is a slowdown in the performance of the user's applications, sometimes to a point where they cannot work. This leads to unhappy users and unhappy Citrix administrators too, as they are always being blamed for these slow services and can't do much about them. But now WEM can overcome all these issues. Login times can be reduced down to 10 to 30 seconds and ideally 10 to 20 seconds. And from experience I've seen sub 10-second login times be achieved. This is all done by caching the settings that would usually be in group policy on the ZenApp server or virtual desktop. This allows the settings to be applied to the user straight away rather than being delivered from a domain controller over the network. As well as much shorter login times, there is also an option to use fast logoff as well. Enabling fast logoff logs the user off a desktop session instantly and runs all the logoff processes in the background, so the user doesn't have to wait around for everything to shut down. Processor optimization reprioritizes the user applications and gives them a higher priority than the processes that are causing high processor usage. This allows users to use applications as they are the only ones using them. And in the case of ZenApp, it's like they are the only ones on the server. Reduced login times, much faster responsive applications all provide a better user experience and will give users a good reason to talk more positively about their experience. So implementing WEM leads to happy users and much more happier Citrix administrators. The user settings management side of WEM allows the following to be done. Significantly reduce logon times by moving user settings from group policy and group policy preferences into WEM policy. One caveat is that the ADMs and ADMXs, such as those for Microsoft Office, can't be imported into WEM like they are with AppSense Environment Manager, but you can convert the settings into registry entries and put them into policy in this way. But I tend to leave them in an AD user group policy object, as I haven't seen that they affect user login time significantly. Citrix user profile management, folder redirection, and user environment settings, which would all be configured using group policies in Citrix environment, can all be configured in Citrix WEM. A user profile cleanup tool has also been included for newly added Citrix user profile management file and folder exclusions. This could potentially save gigabytes of storage by removing data that is no longer required in the user profiles. Applications and printers can be added, and users even allowed to choose applications and printers that they want to have. When choosing applications, users can set the location of them. For example, to have the application shortcuts placed on the desktop, taskbar, and start menu, and with printers, they can choose their own default printers if you require them to. The fast log off option means users can just log off and leave their workstation. All log off processes take place in the background, so no more waiting around for their desktop to shut down. Filters can be used too. So say you had a finance department who had a sensitive application, but they can only run whilst logged onto the local network, which restricts you from giving them remote access. Well, now you can give them remote access, as you can assign the application to the user and then use a filter so that if the IP address that the user is connecting from is not on the local network, the application is filtered out and not presented to the user whilst they are working remotely. Okay, so this is the first customer scenario. So this is a customer scenario where I had users who were experiencing very slow login times, and they had huge roaming user profiles. The customer was a recruitment agency that was running XenApp 6.5 with roaming profiles. The initial investigation into the problem showed 300-second plus login times, and they had roaming profiles that were up to 4 gigabytes in size. They had user density issues on the XenApp 6.5 servers as well, and could only accommodate 8 to 10 users before the servers would run out of CPU and memory resources. We proposed a migration from XenApp 6.5 with roaming profiles to XenApp 7.13 with Citrix WEM, Citrix user profile management, and folder redirection. The customer agreed to the proposal, and we implemented the solution for them. During the XenApp 7.13 implementation, we moved all user group policy, apart from Microsoft Office 2013 group policy settings, into a WEM policy. This included actions such as mapping network drives, mapping network printers, creating registry entries, adding logon scripts, and specifying file type associations, as some users needed to use Adobe Acrobat, whereas others could only use Adobe Reader or Foxit Reader. Folder redirection was configured in the Microsoft USV section of WEM policy, and the Citrix profile management settings were configured to point to a new user store, as users were to get new user profiles and not their existing roaming profiles. CPU, I/O, and memory optimization were all configured, and the customer's endpoint protection and trusted installer processes were given a low I/O priority as recommended by WEM best practice. The WEM agent was installed on the XenApp Gold image, and the WEM policy was pushed out to it. I also added a scheduled task to run at server startup that stops and starts the WEM agent host service and refreshes the cache so that it talks to the WEM broker. This was done as otherwise the agent can stay in an offline mode. The XenApp servers were then provisioned from the XenApp Gold image. The results of the new XenApp 7.13 implementation with WEM and Citrix user profile management were a significant improvement on the XenApp 6.5 farm with roaming user profiles. Login times were now around 10 seconds, with some being recorded at 8 seconds. User profiles were much smaller using Citrix user profile management. The majority of users were around 10 megabytes, and the biggest was 50 megabytes. Adding all the exclusions as per best practice really helped with the user profiles not capturing more data than was required. There were no more resource issues like the XenApp 6.5 and the new XenApp XenApp 7.13 servers, which were accommodating 20 to 30 users rather than just 8 to 10 users, meaning less resources being used and less servers to manage, which was made even simpler by using machine creation services. The implementation was a positive one for the customer, and they now have very happy users, increasing productivity and no doubt their profit too. I'll now show you how to add actions such as applications, network drives, network printers, registry entries, file type association and file type associations to WEM policy. Okay, so we've got our WEM policy set up already, so I'm just going to add a couple of applications in. So I'll add Microsoft Word 2013 and Microsoft Excel 2013. So all you have to do is click the Add button, and add a display name for Microsoft Word 2013. Then point it to the command line, which points to the executable, and then set a working directory. Just click OK, and that's the application added. And I'll just do the same for Microsoft Office as well. Okay, so they're both added now. So the next thing I'm going to do is add a network printer. So if I go to the printers section, once again, click on Add, and I enter the display name of the printer I'm going to use, which will be a Samsung printer, and then just add the path of the printer which is on the print server. There we go, and that's added. So click OK there. The next thing I'm going to apply is a network drive. Just click Add here. I'll add my tech manuals and map drive. So just pop the tech manuals name into the display name, and then just add the target path. Just click OK, and that's added now. Now I'm going to add a registry entry. So I'll just click Add again. Once again, put the display name in with the reg key. And then the next is the target path in the H key current users. The target name. And I'm going to change the target type to a D word, and then just add the value, and then I'm going to set it just so it's run once when the user logs in. Okay, so that's a registry entry added. And next, I'm going to add a file type association. This is going to be for JavaScript, and it'll be so if a user clicks on a JavaScript attachment in an email, it won't run. It will run with Notepad instead, and not propagate. So no malware can be installed on the system. So I just add a .js file in here. There we go, and then just set it to open on the action. Okay, and then just set Notepad as a target application, and the command box, just put a space there, or you could put your own command in there if you wanted to. Just click OK. And the next thing we need is a user group to assign these actions to. So if I go to the Active Directory objects, click on my users, click on Add, and I'm going to add my Citrix users group into here. Okay, so that's it in now, so we can assign those actions to our Citrix users group. So click on that, and it populates the available box. So if I assign the Microsoft Excel 2013 application, and I'm going to set it so when the user logs on, it will create a desktop shortcut. So if I enable that, and I'm also going to have it pinned to the start menu as well. So right click on that one, enable as well. So that's Excel sorted. And now I'll add Word in as well. I'll do the same one here. I'll create a desktop shortcut and pin to the start menu as well, but I'll also auto start this one as well. Okay, so that's the applications added. I'll add the printer now. So select the printer and then move it over. And then I'm going to set this as default printer by right clicking and clicking enable. I'll add my network drive, Tech Manuals network drive, and give it the letter T. Okay, and then I'll assign the serialized key that I added before, and that's added. And finally, the JavaScript file type association. So yeah, they're added now. So when these actions, they'll now be applied to the Citrix user group when they log in and get their XenApp session. CPU and I/O optimization in Citrix WEM intelligently monitors all CPU and I/O resource and allocates it as required. This allows users to run processes without lag or delay, providing a great user experience. Processes can be assigned a higher priority so that at certain periods, for example, at the end of a financial year, you could assign a higher CPU and I/O priority to Microsoft Excel, as is required by the finance team to work with large spreadsheets. CPU clamping and affinity can also be set on processes, but I would not recommend this as you are not allowing the application to work as it would expect to work, and this may cause other issues. Right, so this graph shows CPU and I/O optimization working in a scenario where WEM isn't installed. As you can see, the system processes such as antivirus, updates, and OS activity are prioritized above user applications. And as such, the applications take longer to open and have slower performance as they are not prioritized. This leads to a poor user experience, which makes the users unhappy. When WEM is installed and configured on the XenApp servers and virtual desktops, the entire process looks completely different. Now, the user applications get priority over the system processes that are running, and now the user has applications that are quick to open, don't freeze or hang, and they can work without any kind of performance impact. The reprioritization doesn't affect the system processes running like antivirus. It is just queued and takes place when the processor usage is reduced. With memory optimization in WEM, all applications that are minimized and idle will have a portion of the memory they are not using reclaimed, which will go back to the system. When applications become active again, they do not use as much memory as before and only use what they need. This allows less memory to be assigned to XenApp servers and virtual desktops, so more XenApp servers and virtual desktops can fit onto a hypervisor host. Idle timeout periods can be set. The minimum idle time that can be set is 5 minutes, which I tend to use for implementations. The idle processor level limit can also be set, which I found with browser applications that this should be set to around about 5%, as live check-in and news ticker updates in websites keep these sites active even when they are idle. Okay, so I'm just going to discuss my second scenario now. So this scenario was for solicitors who weren't able to cope with the amount of letters that they had to produce. So they needed to get a speech recognition software working on their XenApp 6.5 servers. The initial implementation they did of the speech recognition software failed, as it was maxing out the CPU and memory resource, which stopped users from working on the XenApp servers. We were informed by the customer that if they are unable to get the speech recognition software working, that they would have to employ 4 additional members of staff to manually create the letters, which would cost the customer £120,000 or $162,000 per year. The customer had recently purchased Citrix Customer Success Services, so we suggested to them that implementing WEM may solve the performance problems they were experiencing, so they agreed to go ahead with it. The first thing we did was install a WEM broker server for them, which used an existing SQL Server 2012 database server to host the WEM database. I created a WEM policy just for CPU, memory, and I/O optimization. We then allocated one of the XenApp 6.5 servers as a test server that was not in production and added the XenApp server to a new OU for test servers. I created an AD group policy object which pointed the test server at the WEM broker server for its configuration. I installed the WEM agent on the test XenApp server, pushed out the policy, and then checked the test server to make sure it had the right WEM policy. I then used tools such as CPU Eater and CPU Stress to check that CPU optimization was working. I then started applications like Chrome to load websites in multiple tabs, Excel spreadsheets, and Word documents. Once they were open, I recorded the amount of memory being used and then checked them after 5 minutes of being idle. All applications showed that memory was being reclaimed. Myself and 2 employees of the customer started testing the speech recognition software by dictating letters through a microphone connected to a Windows embedded thin client. To the customer's surprise, no CPU or memory issues occurred, and the testing we did was successful. We observed some remarkable levels of memory being reclaimed by WEM. when the speech recognition software was idle. Whilst being used, the speech recognition software was using 500 megabytes of memory. After 5 minutes of being idle, that amount of memory had reduced down to 8 megabytes. So WEM had reclaimed 492 megabytes of memory and given it back to the XenApp server. I was booked in for 2 days to do the work, but the simplicity of WEM meant that I had completed everything on day one. I used the second day to do a thorough handover to the customer and to document the implementation so that the customer knew what each component did. The speech recognition software was then tested for another 2 weeks and worked fine. It was then rolled out to all servers, where it is now being used without any performance issues. The customer asked us to add a second WEM broker a couple of months later and to load balance it for redundancy using Citrix NetScaler. This was a great implementation which saved the customer a considerable amount of money. I'll now show you how to configure a system optimization policy in WEM for your XenApp servers or XenApp virtual desktops. Okay, so first thing I'll do is create a new configuration set for the WEM system optimization policy. So just click on create and I'll just give it a name. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is I will add, I'll change it over because it's currently set to Kiosk 1. And I'll go to system optimization now. Okay, first thing I'll do is enable fast log off and then click apply to make sure the settings have saved. Then go to CPU management. So I'll enable CPU spikes protection. My RDS server's got 4 virtual CPUs. So to calculate the CPU usage limit percentage, I have to divide 100 by the number of virtual CPUs, which is 4, which gives me 25%. Then subtract 1% from this value, which gives me 24%. Then I enable the intelligent CPU optimization and enable intelligent IO optimization and click apply. Go to memory management and enable the working set optimization. Then I will change the idle sample time to 5 minutes and the idle state to 5%. Yeah, these are the options that I found provide the best performance for memory. Then click apply so as not to lose any settings in here. So mouse just stuck. There we go. Okay. Then go to IO management. Tick the box to enable process IO priority, and then I'll add in the trusted installer process into here and give it a low priority. Oh, change that. Yeah, edit it again. Yeah, change that to low. That should be low. And then add in the antivirus process. So this has a low priority as well. Okay, I just had a fake antivirus process into here. And set that policy as low and then just click OK. And that's the optimization policy complete. And now all you need to do is just push that out and that will go to the XenApp servers and then desktop virtual desktops, and it will start making savings on CPU, memory and IO. Okay, so process whitelisting. Process whitelisting allows you to make sure that only the verified processes you want to run are run. To determine the processes that are required, I would suggest running a period of user testing and collecting the processes that are being run, and then analyze those processes to make sure they are all business related and that there aren't any rogue processes in there. It may be wise to run a couple of periods of user testing in case processes are missed during the first period. Once you have your list of processes, you just upload them into a whitelisting policy in WEM and apply it to your XenApp servers or virtual desktops. This is a great way to protect yourself from ransomware and malware attacks, and also to save on the cost and performance degradation of having antivirus protection on your XenApp servers or virtual desktops. I advise though to have antivirus scanning on the redirected folders, and also to set file tab associations to stop JavaScript from executing, like I showed you earlier, and set group policy for Microsoft Office macros. Ransomware and malware are very big problems these days, with the average cost of an infection estimated to be £75,000 or $90,000 by Info Security magazine. Process blacklisting is the opposite of process whitelisting. Basically, you specify an application process, such as WinWord.exe for Microsoft Word, and it will block that process from running. Blacklisting could be useful if you had an application for which you had only a certain number of licenses. So you could exclude a specified AD user group from the blacklist, and they would be able to access the application. It looks as though the way whitelisting and blacklisting will be done in the next version of WEM is going to change. There's a video floating around on YouTube which shows the new app locker feature that looks very similar to AppSense Application Manager. So I'm quite excited to see its new addition in WEM and can't wait to start testing it. I've already got the tech preview and I've been having a look at that and it looks very interesting. Okay, so let's move on to Transformer. Transformer, for those of you who have not heard about it, allows you to turn a Windows PC into a thin client. Transformer is simple and easy to use. All you have to do is create a policy, enable Transformer, and set the URL to point at your storefront server for users to log on. You can also add a list of websites and tools such as the RDP client, calculator, and notepad to the logon page, which users can access without having to log into storefront. Then you just install the WEM agent onto your PCs, and when the user powers on the PC, it will launch in kiosk mode and will bring up the Citrix storefront page for them to log in. It's a good option for repurposing existing hardware, and it is also a good option if you need Windows drivers for devices such as dictation devices and cameras to be passed through to your Citrix session. So my third customer scenario is where I had implemented the Transformer feature. The customer was an accountancy firm, but we had just completed a migration from XenApp 6.5 to XenApp 7.12. The migration had been a complete success. They were originally running 20 XenApp 6.5 servers for 200 users with a concurrency of 150 users on at any time. The migration to XenApp 7.12 with WEM was configured to use actions, system optimization, folder redirection, and user profiles. This new implementation had reduced the number of XenApp servers down from 20 to just 6. So the customer was extremely happy with this, as they were now using significantly less resource from their hosting provider, which over the next few years will save them a lot of money. They've actually been able to reduce the number of virtual CPUs used from 80 down to 24, which is a difference of 56 virtual CPUs, and the amount of RAM they were using went down from 480 gigabytes to 192 gigabytes, a saving of 288 gigabytes of RAM. The customer had no budget left after the XenApp 7.12 migration to replace the Windows PCs with thin clients as originally intended, so they needed a solution that would enable them to convert the PCs to thin clients. I suggested to the customer that a proof of concept be carried out where we would use the Transformer feature of WEM to convert the PCs to be used as thin clients. The customer was happy with what we were proposing and agreed to the Transformer proof of concept. This is what we did during the proof of concept. First of all, we created a reference build of one of the PCs built with Windows 7, all the latest updates, all drivers, the latest Citrix receiver, the customer's endpoint protection software, and the WEM agent. From this reference build, we captured it using Microsoft MDT. Then we imaged 10 PCs with the reference build, joined them to the domain, and then placed them into a new OU called kiosks. We created a new WEM policy called kiosks and enabled the Transformer option. The Transformer settings were configured so that when a PC was powered on, it would automatically log in with an anonymous AD account. Once logged in, the storefront login page would be displayed so that users could log in and get a XenApp session. Once the WEM policy had been configured, it was applied to the kiosks OU and pushed out to the 10 PCs that were in the OU. The 10 PCs were located in different departments throughout the business, and users logged onto them over a period of 2 weeks, recording their experience whilst using the PCs. The feedback from the testing reported no problems. The users could successfully log in, launch a session, and complete their work tasks. The end result from the proof of concept was that it was successful, and the phased rollout was put in place to convert all 200 PCs in the business so that they would be using Transformer to become thin clients. The customer was happy as they no longer had users using the PCs with apps on, as well as connecting to the Citrix sessions on the same machine. This often caused confusion to the users. They can now look after the They can now look after their user sessions through Citrix Directory Remote Assistance when users have problems, rather than having to use software like DemoNT Utilities to manage PCs, thus saving money on licenses. And it will help to reduce visits to satellite offices where they had to install applications and upgrades on PCs. The financial strain on the business was also reduced, as they can run the PCs as thin clients and wait a year or two until there is budget available to replace the PCs with actual thin clients. So I'll just show you a demo of how to configure a WEM policy for Transformer, which will convert the PCs to thin clients. Okay, the first thing I've done is create a new configuration set called kiosks, which you can see at the top. So that's been already prepared. Then the next thing I go is in the Active Directory objects, I'm going to add in the kiosks OU, which contains the PCs that would have the Transformer policy applied to them. So there's a kiosk OU then, just OK that. And our next thing to do is to go into the Transformer settings. Okay, I'll tick the box to enable Transformer, which is in the general settings. And then in the web interface URL, I enter my storefront URL into this box. This is for the receiver for web. So that's just added in there now. Next settings I'm going to change are in appearance. I'll just add a custom title into here. I'll just call it CTX Lab Kiosks. There we go. And then I'll enable the display clock and the enable application panel and the show navigation buttons as well on there. And in the change unlock password section, I will set an unlock password and click the apply password button after doing that. To unlock the kiosk sessions and go into the admin mode, you will need to press Control-Alt+U, and that will allow you to administer the PC on there and make changes. And then the next thing I'm going to change is in the site settings. So if I go into the site settings tab, and in here I'm going to add a couple of websites. So if I enable the site list and then click on the add button, I'll add the Citrix site here by entering the site name of Citrix and then the site URL to point to the Citrix website. And then I make sure that site state is set to enabled so that it shows up. And once that's done, just click OK. I'll just add a second one in here just for VMware, for example. You can add any other websites in there that you want to, but you want the user to be able to access without having to log into Storefront and into their Citrix sessions. Okay, so they're added now. So if we go to tool settings this time. So tool settings allows us to add applications that we want to use rather than to log into Citrix. So click enable the tools list and click add. I'll add the remote desktop connection client here. So I'll just type in RDP client and then open the path to the MSTSC executable. You have the option here as well if you can actually auto launch these applications when a machine boots in as well. Okay, so that's added in the paths there now, so I just click OK on there. And you can add in any other applications you want as well. So you might want the user to have Notepad or calculator to be available without having to log into their Citrix session. Now there's just a few settings I need to change in the advanced settings now. So if I go to the advanced section of Transformer settings, and then go into the advanced and administration settings tab. And then I like to set the options here to hide the kiosk while Citrix session is running, and then the hide taskbar and start button box as well, and the lock alt tab option as well on there. And then in the log on and log off power settings options, I always enable the auto logon mode. This is mainly because I've got endpoint protection on my PCs and it needs to have a Windows account to log in with. So I've just created like anonymous user accounts in AD, and I'll just enter the credentials into this box. So just find those credentials and enter them now. Okay, just pop the password in after this, and then that's how it's done there. And the bit we're going to have to set after this is at the end of session options. You've got actions like when a user logs off a session, you can have it do nothing, log off, or shut down, or restart the PC. I normally say it to restart the PC so everything comes back up fresh. So I just set to restart. And then below that, you've also got power options as well. So you can actually set the machines to shut down. So say you wanted all users finish work at 6 o'clock and you wanted all machines in the business to shut down at 8, you could set the shutdown at a specified time for 8 o'clock there, and those PCs would shut down. And you just need to be powered back on in the morning when the users get in. Okay, so that's it applied, and then that would just be pushed out to my kiosk PCs now. And I'll just show you, this is one of the kiosks. So this is a kiosk when it's working, when the transformer policy is applied. So as you can see at the top left, it shows the CTX Lab kiosk display name that we gave it. That's just there. And then we have sites. So I've got Citrix, Microsoft, and Northscale. I added Microsoft and Northscale in as well. So I click on Citrix, that loads me the Citrix website up. And then I can use the navigation button to go back, and I go back to the storefront login page. And here are the tools. So I've got my RDP client, calculator, and notepad. So I can start remote desktop connection up without having to log into storefront, or calc, and then notepad as well. So they're all accessible without having to log into Citrix. And then I'll just show you a log into storefront. So I'll just log on with all my test users. Okay, and there you are, it's logged into storefront, and now I'm able to log a desktop if I wanted to launch one. Okay, and that's the demo done, and you've just got options there if you want to, whether to shut down, restart, or log off the PC. Okay, so that's everything done there. Okay, so I'll move on a bit, just a couple of little bits more now. So I've just got a bit on monitoring. So I'll just give you a quick overview of the monitoring features in WEM. WEM allows you to analyze login times for users and compare them between sessions. It will also analyze the boot times of servers and virtual desktops. You can view daily and historical reports going back years. You can compare trends so that you can see if the login and boot times are increasing, and this allows you to do something about them. And it also compares trends with operating systems so you can see how many logins from each type of OS there has been. Yeah, monitoring is an excellent bit of kit as well. Ideally, it needs more integration with Director and Storefront as well, and I think that would be a really good little tool in WEM. Finally, I've got what WEM offers the businesses. So what are the advantages for businesses that would like to implement WEM? For the use of CPU, I/O, and memory optimization, this allows up to a 70% server consolidation and scaling. The savings in CPU and memory allows you to get more users onto your XenApp servers, so you will get a higher number of XenApp servers per hypervisor host. And the same will apply for desktop virtualization too. You'll get more virtual desktops on a hypervisor host. WEM also allows you to deploy XenApp and XenDesktop on hardware that isn't high-end, so savings can be made in this way too. Hardware will also last longer as the level of processors, memory, and I/O usage will be reduced, and there will more than likely be savings due to power savings as well. There is an instant return on investment. Users will not lose work time waiting around to log on, and for applications to open, or waiting for them to come back to life after they are frozen. Another area to focus on is the extra security protection WEM offers. Process whitelisting allows only approved processes to be run, so malware and ransomware will not be able to execute and propagate. The new security with App Locker feature should enhance the security that WEM will provide. I'm currently running tech preview at the moment, and it will offer greater protection against threats. As I talked about earlier, there is the option to repurpose old PCs by using the transformer feature. As with the customer I implemented this for, it can be used as a stopgap until there's a budget available to replace all PCs with new thin clients. There will no doubt be more features added to WEM in the future. And last but not least, it will create happy users and very happy administrators. And lastly, just some useful resources. So finally, I'd like to mention, if you'd like to learn or install more about WEM, these are excellent resources to use. The first is the link to download WEM from the Citrix website. The latest version is 4.4. The tech preview that's out as well at the moment is 4.45, but that shouldn't be used in production yet. There are previous versions also available on the Citrix website as well, so in case you want to install them, see how the product has changed between versions, and you can also use them for testing upgrades from one version to another. Secondly, we have Citrix Docs, where you can find all the installation documents, release notes, etc. And then there are two excellent blogs. The first is George Spear's website, and the second is Carl Stallard's website. Both websites are a rich resource of information on WEM. They are very handy for when you are implementing or troubleshooting WEM. George Spears has got a script on his website for documenting WEM, which I use at the end of each project so that I have a record of how I configured everything in WEM for the customer. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone who has stayed to watch this presentation on WEM, and now I can hand back to Eric. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dane. It was awesome. People are really loving it. I posted a lot of images here to Twitter. We love this real world scenario use cases. And
that's brilliant.
And due to the slightly change in the agenda, I'm going to get back to that. But we do have some extra time, so we can ask you some questions here from.
Sure, go for it.
So let me see here. We have one here from Tim. Do you use any specific process to clean the start menu prior to adding the application through WEM?
No, I don't usually have to. No, I just normally enable them and they go in there. You can make a mandatory profile and stuff, and make a mandatory like start menu if it's in read-only mode, and you can publish it that way. But no, I don't usually tend to have to do much on there.
Okay, so we have another question here from Chuck. Is it possible to assign printers by host name of the endpoint? For example, if a user signs in to computer A, they get printer A, but if they sign into computer B, they get printer B.
Yes, it is. I've actually done that. I can dig the information out on that as well. It works very well. Yeah, it will work by host name. So it does that. Yeah, I've also done it on OU as well. So like for a site. So you can do it that way.
Cool. So the question is popping in. So people, if you have questions related to WEM, please put them in now and we will take them as we go. So we have another question here from Louis. Any option to use native receiver with transformer?
Yeah, I haven't found that I have, but it may be. I've only ever done it with receiver for web, so I've not tried it with native receiver. It may be something I need to try, and I'll put a blog on my website about.
Cool. So we have another one here from Steve. This is an interesting one. Can the Vim controller be the same box as the normal delivery controller storefront?
Yes. Yeah, you can just. It doesn't take up much resource. You can just add it on there. Yeah, that's fine. If you're struggling for like Windows licenses, yeah, you can just go on the storefront or on the delivery controller.
Okay, I have a question as well. So I haven't tested this, but we have been playing with the idea of using the WEM agent on regular infrastructure server to handle the CPU and memory optimization. Do you have any experience with that?
I've not tried that. No, I've only done it on just XenApp and virtual desktops. But I can't see why it wouldn't run there. If you've got the licenses in Citrix and stuff, you should be able to use it.
Exactly, because we did a lot of log VSI tests with the Civiton HCL project with and Shane and Ricky is going to talk about that later today. But what we saw, just by installing the agent with no configuration, the broker was not configured at all. It did optimize the system just by installing the agent, and that's pretty cool.
I'd expect it to do that because really, when you're doing the transformer, that works in exactly the same way. That's not got XenApp or Zen Desktop or the VDA on there. So I can't see why it wouldn't. And I expect that to work pretty well.
Cool. So we have another one here from Scott. Can I test WEM without the CSS support license?
You could use a trial Citrix license. I think it would work as well with just normal Subscription Advantage license as well. I think when you install it, I think it still does work with Subscription Advantage, but you would need to get license for select services to use it in production.
Yeah, I think that's correct, because we are doing that in the Automation Framework Masterclass. So we're using the 30-day trial license, and then after that you get an email where you can extend it to 90 days, so you have the platinum there. So that should work.
Yes. Yeah, because you need enterprise or platinum licensing for it, don't you? You can't use it with advanced.
Okay, so we have a question here from unregistered name. So that's related to the broker. When will that be delivered? Be part of the delivery controller? We don't know, but hopefully we will see that all these components is being part of the regular download. As of now, it's a separate download, and that used to be the case for the session recording stuff as well, but now the session recording stuff is part of the regular ISO. So hopefully we will see that in the near future.
Yeah, I'd like to see more integration with Director and Storefront as well. So especially for monitoring, that'd be nice to see in Director, because it all ties in together and gives you can just identify like user login times increasing and boot times and stuff like that, and then it just helps you to do something about them.
Yeah, and if you have some feature requests, please bomb Pierre on Twitter so he gets those and can bring it to the product team. But what we've been asking for is being able to import export from group policy objects, being able to use CSV import for whitelist and blacklist, as we have been talking about before.
Yes, that is one of the things. So when you've got like AppSense application environment manager, you've got like ease of adding in ADMXs and ADMs. I'd like to see more integration with that into WEM.
Exactly. How is WEM Transformer license from Chris?
Well, for the implementation I did, it just seemed to allow me to use them, even though I think we had 200 user licenses and stuff, and we were using Zen apps, and it just allowed me to add as many transformer machines as I wanted. So I don't think it didn't seem to take just to restrict me to like 200 user licenses in WEM.
So we have a question here from Dio. Do you deploy UPM alongside WEM or separate them?
Yeah, I normally have it as well as WEM. So we usually create a store and then have the UPMs on the VDAs anyway, and then just so I don't apply the group policy through AD or through Citrix group policy. Now it's all just done through WEM.
Exactly, and I think I talked about this last year, but people, please be aware that you're better off integrating it through WEM, because if you add exclusion filters to WEM, WEM will clean up in the profile, but if you do it through group policy object, it won't clean up. So then you have to run manual scripts to do that. So does WM optimization also work with Senna with AppV? Have you done any testing there?
I've not done anything with AppV on it yet. I don't think I've had a customer who's been using AppV yet. So no, I'm not really sure on that one.
Okay, so we have a question here from Andrew. Have you had any issue with deploying UPM through WM to PVS systems, or have you just been using MCS?
No, I've used PVS as well. There's not been any issues at all. The only problem I had was with one customer, and they had PVS implemented, and the client for Microsoft Networks was still on the network adapter for the PVS network. And what was happening, the PVS network adapter was registering in WEM, rather in the WEM administration console for the agent, rather than the actual one on the VDI network. So we had to end up taking the client from Microsoft Networks off the PVS network adapter, and then I've had to install the WEM agent again, and that started working. Yeah,
and something I've seen is related to, actually it's not related just to WM, it's related to agent in general. So if you're building a master image from scratch, you don't have it as part of your GPO. The GPO won't apply before the services start, so you're better off, or you have to actually add it to registers, so the agent will register properly.
Yes. And if anyone wants to use a tech preview of 4.45, if you're upgrading from like your test lab from 4.3 or 4.4 to 4.45, the new app locker security bit, it doesn't appear. There's a SQL command you have to run on the database, and then it actually appears in the administration console. So I'll tweet that later on for that.
Cool. So in terms of all the speakers now for the WorldExpo, if you go to the agenda page, there is a red hyperlink, and then that goes straight to the presenter's Twitter account, so you can go in there and ask any further question. And the final question is mine, because I'm seeing you, and I know you're using the automation framework intensively. Could you explain how you use the automation framework when you're doing the POCs with your customers?
Well, I've just got a couple of nooks like yourself, Eric. So I just copy the images, the build images off there for all the different operating systems, and then I just copy over the W source folders and then all the applications, and then I just put them onto a server for a user, and then I'm able to deliver POCs to customers in no matter of time, probably about half a day setup, and then I can deliver a Citrix POC, a VMware Horizons POC, and an RDS POC in no matter of time. And it's easy to. I've got the home lab here is brilliant because of the automation framework. I can do anything I want and test it out. Whereas before, I had to build everything manually, and it just took ages, and it was a bit of a pain. But the automation frameworks really helped me.
Awesome, and you're gonna love the new hydration kit also, so you can build your domain infrastructure as well there. So.
Yes, that looks absolutely awesome. That does.